Hey there, Max Rich with Totally Electric Guitars. Today we're talking about Country Boy by Albert Lee. Albert Lee was pretty much anything but a country boy, at least a southern country boy. He was from England. But you would never know that by listening to him play. He sounds like the real, home on the range sort of player. And it comes from his ability to use hybrid picking in his right hand. And he was one of the real first pioneers on electric guitar to kind of employ this sort of like country picking style, this kind of like Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed sort of a style. Apply it to electric guitar and make it sort of, I don't want to say a pop type of genre, but a much more popular genre, spread out among the world. Back in the 60s and 70s, country music was really confined to like the southern part of America, basically. But as kind of Albert Lee came up through the ranks of guitar players, he became really, really popular in England and Europe, and kind of brought this, or helped bring this kind of chicken picking, kind of like country style of playing over to Europe, where now it's like really, really popular, and people hear really great players that can play country, like they grew up playing it on the farm or something, but they're from England or from France or somewhere like this, And like I was saying, it really goes back to his ability to do chicken picking. And chicken picking is really a simplistic way of picking multiple strings using your fingers and a pick at the same time. A lot of players I know struggle learning how to use their fingers. Stairway to Heaven is like a really common way for guitar players to get used to playing with their fingers, because most of us learn how to play with a pick, especially if we're like rock based or something. But once you start getting to the point where a pick isn't enough, you have strings that separate, or strings that are far apart, that you want to get at the same time. If you're going to play the open E and both open E's, right, kind of like Lemon Song, right? That kind of idea. That's chicken picking. That's hybrid picking, just in its most simplistic form. You take that, then you follow that a few steps down the line, and you end up with Albert Lee. And that's kind of like a really fast, souped-up version of that. The only difference is, instead of playing strings at the same time, most of the time hybrid pickers play strings that are adjacent to each other. So, for example, that kind of an idea. And another thing that really helps when you're first learning how to do that is to take just like 3 strings, like I just did. Like, let's take the D string, the G string, and the B string. And the best way to go about it is learning how to pick the lowest of those strings with your pick, and the other ones with your finger, or 2 fingers. I use my middle finger and my ring finger on my right hand, and I pluck those together. And then you learn to separate them. That sort of thing, right? And then you reverse that. And you have to kind of like work with all different patterns in your right hand to combine your fingers and your pick, so that you can get the dexterity that you probably already have with a pick, but don't with your hybrid picking. If all of this sounds like completely difficult and foreign, check out my lesson on hybrid picking. It'll dive into it much further. But this lesson is really geared to people who already have some sort of introduction to hybrid picking, because it's the whole thing is like really fast hybrid picking. So if you can't chicken pick, check out the other lesson, and at the end of that one, you'll be able to handle this one no problem. So before I dive into the meat of the lesson, what I want to do is address the issue of unison notes. Really, really common in hybrid chicken picking, especially country guitar. You have this idea where you're plucking the lower note and then finger picking the higher note, but they're the same note. And the cool thing that or the thing that helps with that, or accomplishing that country sound, is sliding or hammering into the lower note. That sort of that kind of a thing, right? And what I'm doing is just that, like sliding or hammering onto the 5th fret, 4th string, and then finger picking with my middle finger the open 3rd string, and then just going back and forth. And if you can do that, then you're pretty much almost home with the introduction of Country Boy. And right now we're about to dive into it, but I want to just say that we're covering basically just the introduction of it, because the verses and everything are really pretty. Once you can get the introduction, the rest is much easier. And the introduction is kind of like the theme that defines Country Boy. So if you can rip that theme, then everyone's going to know that you're an Albert Lee fan and that you can play. So without any further ado, here comes the introduction for Country Boy.